Have you ever felt it? That, that persistent nagging feeling that something just isn't quite right with the world. Like a feeling that kind of lurks at the back of your mind, a splinter maybe, suggesting that the reality you see might be way more complex or maybe even less real than it seems.
Yeah, that sense of unease.
Exactly. It resonates with so many people, and maybe no film has captured that existential doubt quite like The Matrix. Decades later, I mean, it came out in 99, it still sparks these intense conversations, right?
Yeah.
Philosophical debates and just this deep curiosity about, well, existence itself.
Absolutely. And when The Matrix first hit, it was so much more than just a cool action movie with revolutionary effects.
Right.
It really jumped beyond its genre. People call it tech noir, hinting at that dark, cynical world shaped by tech, kind of like Blade Runner. But the Wachowskis, they didn't just give us bullet time and amazing kung fu. They built this incredibly compelling story that was both, an expression of contemporary culture and also a huge contribution to it.
So it was reflecting the times, but also shaping them.
Precisely. It grappled with the big stuff,
Yeah.
Technology, control systems, how they impact our lives in ways we don't always see. And honestly, it feels even more relevant today, doesn't it?
It really does.
And yeah, a lot of the talk around The Matrix has been about the philosophy, the religious parallels, which are definitely there. But for this deep dive, we also really want to spotlight its connections to social theory, what it unpacks about reality, tech, society, then and now.
And just to show how baked in these big ideas were from the start, think about that early scene. Neo, right? He's getting these illegal computer disks. And where does he pull them from? Not just a hiding spot, but inside a hollowed-out copy of Jean Baudrillard's Simulacra and Simulation. The title is right there on the spine.
Yeah, clear as day.
So minutes into the movie, it's basically telling you, okay, buckle up. This isn't just explosions and fights. We're going somewhere deeper here.
Exactly. That book wasn't just, a random cool prop. It was a very deliberate nod, a name check for the cognoscenti, as some critics put it.
For those in the know.
Right. Baudrillard, often called the high priest of postmodernism, which is basically this philosophical movement that questions objective reality, arguing reality is kind of constructed through language, media, signs.
Okay.
The filmmakers explicitly acknowledged him. His presence right there signals that his whole theory of simulation, the simulacrum, it's central to what the film's exploring. It connects the story directly to all the new media tech popping up then, and what that means for how we know things.
The epistemological implications.
Yeah, fancy term for basically. How does this tech change how we know what's true? It pushes us to question knowledge itself, what we even accept as real. So for this deep dive, we've looked at a whole range of stuff. Critical analyses, academic papers, talks about the film techniques, philosophical takes, all trying to pull out the key insights for you to help understand the layers in The Matrix.
Okay, so let's dive right into maybe the scene that kicks off the whole philosophical ride. Morpheus offering Neo the choice. You know it.
The red pill or the blue pill? Iconic.
You take the blue pill, the story ends, you wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. The tension there. It's huge, isn't it?
Palpable.
And Neo's decision, it's not just about him. It feels like it's an invitation to us, the audience, to think about our own reality. Makes you wonder, what would I actually choose?
And that choice, it sounds simple, but it really taps into one of philosophy's oldest questions, doesn't it? It instantly makes you think of René Descartes, his Meditations. Centuries ago, he was wrestling with this fundamental problem. How can you really know if you're dreaming or awake?
Right, the dream argument.
Yeah, and you see that all over Neo's early scenes. He keeps waking up, wondering if he's still dreaming, and Morpheus's challenge. Have you ever had a dream, Neo, that you were so sure it was real? How would you know the difference between the dream world and the real world? That's pure Descartes, just updated.
With a sci-fi twist.
Exactly. For Descartes, the worry was maybe an evil demon was tricking his senses. The Matrix just swaps the demon for tech. It paints this picture of our world as a digital simulation created by the intelligent and evil force of the super-evolved machines.
So it's an ancient problem, repackaged for the digital age.
Yeah.
It even feels like Plato's cave, right? Your prisoners mistaking shadows for reality.
Absolutely. The parallels to Plato's allegory of the cave are very strong. Humanity trapped, mistaking the simulation for the real world. The film forces us to confront our own perceptions in a really fundamental way.
And then Neo takes the red pill and the awakening. It's not pleasant, is it? It's brutal.
Yeah.
He's not waking up in Wonderland.
Not at all.
He's violently thrown into this grim dystopian reality. The film shows us this world, 2199, where humans are enslaved. Those visuals, the fields of pods with humans plugged in, harvested for energy.
It's horrifying, pure commodification on a massive scale.
It really is. And that old counterculture phrase, free your head, it suddenly shifts, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It goes from being about like creative thinking to this almost evangelical call for liberation, anarcho-libertarianism almost.
It's a really stark and disturbing contrast to other famous journeys in fiction. You think about Dorothy and Oz or Alice in Wonderland.
Right. They go somewhere fantastical and then wake up back home.
Exactly. They go from reality to fantasy and back to reality, usually relieved. But Neo, his path is one way. From the fantasy he thought was real, the Matrix, to this incredibly harsh, unforgiving, true reality. And as he asks, there's no return.
Oof.
And Morpheus, his name comes from the Greek god of dreams, fittingly. He's the one who shatters that Cartesian sleep, showing humanity's awful situation as just a crop.
Just batteries.
Yeah. And this image, humans as means to an end, living batteries. It's such a powerful allegory. If you look at it through a Marxist lens, it directly mirrors what Marx called the base superstructure.
Okay, break that down a bit.
So think of society like a building. The base is the economy, how stuff gets made, who owns what, the relations of production. The superstructure is everything built on top. Culture, law, politics, ideology, even how we see reality. Marx argued that the often brutal reality of the base, the exploitation, is hidden by the superstructure, which creates a kind of soothing illusion.
So the Matrix is the superstructure hiding the pod fields. The
Exactly. The barbarity of the relations of production are concealed by the soothing simulation. The pod system becomes this literal picture of extraction of surplus value, taking the energy, the unpaid labor from this field of etiolated proletariat.
Etiolated.
Yeah, it means like weakened, pale, starved of light. So workers who are so drained, so oppressed, they're barely aware of it. They provide the energy, but don't truly live. There's this quote from Adorno, Das Leben lebt nicht. Life does not live.
Wow.
It perfectly captures that feeling of futility, of lifelessness, where existence becomes just consumption, just being part of the machine, while the simulation hides how empty it all is. The machines, even though humans made them, become a stand-in for that dehumanizing economic system.
That is chilling. And this feeling, this splinter in the mind, that's what's driving Neo, right? That sense of unease. Morpheus nails it when he says, you're here because you know something. When you know you can't explain, but you feel it, that there's something wrong with the world.
Like a splinter in your mind driving you mad, yeah.
That line just speaks volumes about being human, doesn't it? That gut feeling that things aren't quite what they seem.
Totally. That feeling of something being off. Yeah. Whether you're, prepping for a big meeting and feel overwhelmed by the system, or you're just fundamentally curious and feel there has to be more. That's what pushes people to look deeper.
To seek knowledge beyond the surface.
Exactly. The Matrix just taps into that universal human quest for meaning, for truth. It suggests Neo's unease isn't just him. It's something fundamental in us that pushes us to question reality. It's that little voice asking why.
And like we mentioned, the film doesn't just hint at these ideas, it puts them right on screen.
Yeah.
Neo's apartment, the Baudrillard book, simulacra and simulation, hiding the discs.
Yeah, not subtle.
It's like a signpost saying, these ideas are the foundation.
And it was totally intentional. The filmmakers were open about their debt to Baudrillard, this high priest of postmodernism, his theory of simulation, the simulacrum. It's not just referenced, it's like woven into the movie's DNA.
Right.
The Matrix illustrates so much of Baudrillard's media theory, connecting it to the rise of digital tech back then, and crucially exploring the epistemological implications. How does this tech change how we know things? Baudrillard argued that with so much media, so many images, we start to lose touch with any original reality.
Which brings us to that potent Baudrillard concept, the one Morpheus actually says in an early script draft.
Oh, yes, the desert of the real.
Your whole life has been spent inside the map, not the territory. This is Chicago as it exists today, the desert of the real. It's a really chilling phrase. Baudrillard took that old Borges fable about the map the same size as the empire.
Right, the map that decayed in the desert.
But Baudrillard flips it, right? He says, now, it's not the map representing the territory. It's the map, the model, the simulation that actually creates the territory. The distinction just disappears.
Exactly. And what's left is the desert of the real. It's this eerie idea that the copy has basically consumed the original.
That's Baudrillard's procession of simulacra then. the simulation coming first.
That's the core of it. The simulation, the model, precedes and ultimately replaces the real. And the Matrix in the film is that. It's this perfect, self-contained model that has wiped out the original reality it was supposed to mimic. This leads to the desertification of the real. It's total erasure for the poor humans plugged into the pods. What Baudrillard and the film highlights is that the loss isn't just freedom, it's the very idea of reality. The line between image and original dissolves because there is no original left. Just copies. Like trying to find the source of a viral meme. Good luck. The copies are the reality now. That's the desert.
And you see this playing out in really small, almost mundane details in the film, like the tasty wheat scene.
Oh yeah, Mouse complain about the goo they eat.
Right. He's reminiscing about tasty wheat, which only exists in the Matrix. And he asks, how did the machines know what tasty wheat tasted like? Maybe they got it wrong. Maybe what I think tasty wheat tasted like actually tasted like oatmeal or tuna fish.
But see, for Baudrillard, that question misses the point. Tasty wheat only exists in the Matrix. It is its own reality. It can't taste wrong because there's no real tasty wheat to compare it to.
It's its own reference point.
Exactly. It's a perfect little simulation. And you see this even more clearly with Cypher and that steak scene with Agent Smith.
Ignorance is bliss.
Right. He knows it's not real. I know this steak doesn't exist. The Matrix is telling my brain that it is juicy and delicious. But the simulation is good enough. It is juicy and delicious to him.
The experience is real, even if the steak isn't.
That's the power of the simulacrum. It takes on the force of the real. The distinction vanishes. For Cypher, the simulation is so satisfying, ignorance is bliss. That's hyperreality, where the simulation becomes more real than real, maybe even better than the messy original, like those perfect Instagram filters.
Okay, but here's the twist. Baudrillard himself, despite being in the movie, kind of critiqued the Matrix, didn't he? He thought it misinterpreted his ideas.
He did, yeah. He felt the film made his idea of the virtual too concrete, like these visible phantasms. His main issue was that the Matrix set up this very clear divide, the real world of Zion versus the fake Matrix.
And for Baudrillard, it wasn't that simple.
Not at all. His whole point was often about challenging that kind of easy binary. He used that famous Disneyland analogy.
Oh, right. What was that again?
He said, Disneyland exists in order to hide that it's the real country, all of real America, that is Disneyland.
Oh.
His point being, the obvious fantasy, Disneyland, distracts us from how simulated our actual everyday reality has become. So applying that to the Matrix, Baudrillard might say, maybe the simulation is more real than the real world the movie shows us, or maybe the distinction is just meaningless.
If dying in the Matrix means you die in real life, what's the real difference?
Exactly. What makes the grim 2199 world more real if the experiences are functionally the same? Baudrillard wrote, the real has only ever been a form of simulation. So this creates an epistemological aporia, a fancy way of saying a fundamental, unresolvable doubt. You can't be sure what's real. Reality and conspiracy could look the same, be represented by the same pill. The film, by giving us a clear outside, maybe simplified his more radical idea that the real itself has kind of dissolved.
So, okay, moving beyond the purely philosophical, what does this mean for society? How does the Matrix work as social commentary? That image of the pod feels, it's not just sci-fi horror, it feels like a direct allegory for capitalist exploitation, right?
Yeah.
Humans reduced to objects, energy sources.
It's an incredibly stark visual, and yeah, it maps almost perfectly onto a Marxist reading. Humans become means to an end. The reality simulation split mirrors Marx's base superstructure idea we touched on.
The economy hidden by culture.
Right. The barbarity of the relations of production, the exploitation, is masked by the soothing simulation. The pod system is a literal picture of extracting surplus value from those etiolated proletariat workers drained of life, barely aware they're being used.
Life does not live.
Exactly, Adorno's Das Leben lebt nicht. Life reduced to consumption, an appendage to production, while the simulation hides the emptiness. The machines become stand-ins for that dehumanizing system.
And Morpheus spells out this hidden control system so clearly. The Matrix is everywhere, all around us. You can see it when you look out your window or turn on your television, feel it when you go to work, pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
That's almost a perfect description of ideology, isn't it? How a system of belief permeates everything.
It really is.
And it's a fantastic illustration of Adorno and Horkheimer's concept of the culture industry.
Okay, tell us about that.
They argued that the culture industry, mass media, entertainment, advertising, acts as the psychological arm of capitalism. It produces culture specifically designed to keep people passive, distracted, consuming, and stop them from questioning things or rebelling.
So the Matrix is the culture industry on overdrive.
Pretty much. It's this all-encompassing ideological system. It's a prison for the mind, like Morpheus says, and the tragic outcome is people become powerless and dependent on the very structures holding them down.
Which explains Morpheus saying most people aren't ready to be unplugged.
So inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system that they will fight to protect it.
Yeah. It chillingly captures that societal dependence, how hard it is to wake people up when the illusion is comfortable, and the truth terrifying. You see parallels in how people defend broken systems in the real world, right?
Definitely. And it's not just political ideology. It seems like The Matrix also reflects Baudrillard's ideas about consumption as control, how our consumer culture, like the comforts in the Matrix, distracts us.
Exactly. Baudrillard, in The Consumer Society, argued consumption isn't just about needs. It's a powerful element of social control. Modern society creates desires detached from real needs, makes them into signs, and then satisfies them with other signs, commodities, brands, experiences.
Advertising as seduction.
Seduction via the world of forms, yeah. As long as people are seduced by the simulation of desire, the promise of happiness in the next phone, the endless scroll, the underlying mode of production, however brutal, stays hidden and unchallenged.
The Matrix provides that endless stream of simulated experiences. Cypher's stake again. Perfect example. The simulation is so good, so satisfying, the real doesn't matter. The consumer stays happily plugged in.
Which brings us back to Cypher, maybe the most tragic character. His choice to go back, knowing it's fake. Adorno called that renunciation of utopia, right? Giving up on a better reality.
Yeah. His line, "Ignorance is bliss," after 9 years of knowing the truth. It's profound. He chooses the comforting lie.
It speaks volumes about being crushed by reality.
It really resonates with Adorno's idea of falling for the swindle. People force their eyes shut and voice approval, knowing fully the purpose for which it is manufactured, because facing the truth would be completely intolerable. It's a kind of willful self-deception to keep consuming, keep conforming.
And this links to Max Weber's idea, too, the steel-hard casing.
Right, often mistranslated as iron cage. Weber's point was crucial. Unlike a cage you know you're in, a casing is a prison you're much less likely to know of. Why? Because it becomes part of ourselves, of our constructed identities.
It's internalized.
Exactly. It's not just external bars, it's how we think, how we are. Which explains why Morpheus says, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to realize it yourself, confront your own part in it. Cypher saw the casing and chose to crawl back inside because it felt better.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the red pill itself. Because that idea just exploded outside the movie, didn't it? It became this huge, often really controversial meme.
Oh, absolutely. It took on a whole life of its own. After the films, the term red pill was picked up by Curtis Yarvin, an anti-liberal blogger. And from there, it got adopted by various, neo-fascist, alt-right groups, misogynist communities online, like that Reddit, the red pill place.
And for them, it meant something very different.
Yeah, it came to mean waking up to some supposed feminist conspiracy or other hidden truths about society, often pretty extreme stuff.
We should stress we're just reporting on how the term was used by these groups, not endorsing any of it.
Absolutely not. It's just describing the phenomenon. The term spread further. QAnon used it for their conspiracy theories. It became shorthand for distrusting media. Even people like Elon Musk and Ivanka Trump used it online.
Which prompted that very direct response from Lily Wachowski.
Yeah, she tweeted, "Fuck both of you," making it crystal clear the filmmakers did not agree with how their concept was being twisted and used for ideologies they opposed. It shows how unpredictable pop culture can be, how meanings get hijacked.
And it seems like The Matrix Resurrections, the fourth film, tried to address that hijacking head-on, right? Tried to reclaim the red pill.
It definitely feels like an attempt at reclamation, yeah. It tries to reframe the red pill within a much more explicitly feminist and queer narrative.
How so?
Well, it really elevates Trinity's role, positions Neo almost as her chosen one, which subverts the usual male hero story. It plays with the Christian themes in a way people have called queering the narrative.
And Lily Wachowski has spoken about the film being a trans narrative.
Yes, she's been quite open about seeing the Matrix as explicitly transpositive. In that interpretation, Neo's splinter in his mind becomes like dysphoria, that deep unease with assigned gender. The Matrix itself is the rigid gender binary. The agents. They represent transphobia, societal pressure to conform.
And the red pill.
The red pill could symbolize hormone therapy pills, which apparently often were read back in the 90s when the first film was made.
Wow, that adds a layer.
It does. And Resurrections kind of moves beyond that by making the pill itself less important, more just a symbol of a conscious choice to leave the binary, leave the matrix. By doing that, it tries to void its value for the alt-right, shifting the meaning back to personal liberation, not their specific political awakening.
This raises a really tricky question, doesn't it? Is taking the red pill always the right choice? Does it always lead to truth? Or could it be its own kind of trap? The first film makes it seem simple, but maybe reality isn't that binary.
That's a fantastic and deeply uncomfortable question. Adorno might suggest that this very search for a hidden greater truth in a world that feels meaningless can itself be a symptom of, well, a kind of regression in consciousness.
Like escaping into fantasy instead of dealing with real problems.
Sort of. Adorno wrote these theses against occultism, arguing that believing in stuff like astrology or rigid prophecies comes from wanting easy answers when society strips meaning away. So you could read Neo's whole messianic journey, being the one, relying on the oracle, not as heroism, but as maybe a false hope. A wild ideological goose chase.
That's a pretty radical reading.
It is, and it has disturbing ethical implications. If you follow that thought, Morpheus and the crew, maybe they're not freedom fighters. Maybe they look more like, well, terrorists.
Wow.
Morpheus himself justifies attacking ordinary people, businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters, because they're part of that system. Suddenly that big lobby shootout,
Which looks so cool,
starts to look less like a triumph and more like a horrific massacre of people who are essentially innocent victims trapped in the system themselves. It really makes you question the ethics of forcing truth on others through violence.
And circling back to Baudrillard, his view makes red pilling even more complicated, right? If the real and fake just bleed together.
Exactly. Remember the tasty wheat. If existence inside is functionally equivalent, where's the clear line? Baudrillard felt the film's clean split between real-fake, misunderstood his point that the distinction itself becomes meaningless.
So the scary question is, what if Zion, the real world in the movie, is just another layer of simulation?
Precisely. What if the escape just leads deeper into the matrix? As Baudrillard said, the real has only ever been a form of simulation. This leaves us in that epistemological aporia, again, total doubt, where reality and conspiracy theory can look identical. If the line dissolves, how can a simple red pill guarantee you've reached the truth? Maybe there isn't one singular truth to reach.
Okay, wow. Deep stuff. Let's shift focus slightly to the filmmaking itself. Because beyond the philosophy, The Matrix just revolutionized cinema, didn't it? The visual effects were totally groundbreaking.
Oh, absolutely. It set a whole new benchmark. The gravity-defying stunts, those incredible action scenes, they completely changed what audiences expected to see.
And the most famous effect, bullet time.
Bullet time. Yeah, that amazing effect where it looks like time slows down for the action, but the camera just glides around it at normal speed.
How did they even do that back then?
It was this technique called time slice photography. Basically, they set up tons of still cameras, like over 100 sometimes, in an arc around the action. They'd trigger them almost all at once, capturing these tiny slices of a 3D moment from different angles.
And then stitch them together.
Exactly. Stitch the still frames together digitally to create that fluid, slow-motion, orbiting camera move. Later, for the sequels, they developed even more advanced stuff like virtual cinematography and universal capture, using digital sets and scanning actors, moving beyond the physical camera arrays.
It wasn't just cool visuals, though, was it? It felt like it elevated the action genre.
It really did. It kind of removed that action movie stigma, showing that action could be incredibly stylized, artistic, and central to telling a serious story. It totally shifted expectations for visual realism and dynamic camera work.
And another cool thing was how it blended influences from all over, right? It wasn't just standard Hollywood action.
Definitely. The Wachowskis deliberately brought in wire fu, that acrobatic style from Hong Kong martial arts films. And the whole aesthetic borrows heavily from Japanese manga and anime. They literally said they wanted a real-life depiction of anime.
That fusion felt really fresh.
It did, and they planned it meticulously. They apparently storyboarded everything like a comic book, every scene, angle, effect. That precision really shows. Plus, the influence from video games was huge and very open.
Like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, the script apparently even described one fight scene as like watching a game of Mortal Kombat. It created this new kind of stylized, almost aspirational hyperviolence, where, crucially, Only computer programs are getting hurt. It made reality itself feel like a video game, which really clicked with audiences already deep into digital entertainment.
Okay, so looking back now from our vantage point, let's say mid-2020s.
Yeah.
How well did The Matrix's vision of AI hold up? I mean, the whole premise is sentient machines enslaving us. How much did they get right or wrong?
It's fascinating to look back because they were remarkably prescient in some ways. Let's talk about what they got right. First, definitely AI's breakneck evolution. Back in '99, AI was pretty limited, maybe good at chess. Now, machine learning, deep learning, generative AI like ChatGPT, it's everywhere, impacting daily life massively.
From Deep Blue beating Kasparov right around when they were making the film.
Yeah, 1997, to ChatGPT launching in 2022. AI went from niche to mainstream, capable of complex adaptive learning. That speed, they nailed it.
Okay, what else?
Second, the power of simulated reality. Okay, we're not literally plugged into the Matrix, thankfully, but VR, AR, they are starting to blur the lines between real and digital. AI chatbots are getting scarily realistic. Deepfake tech can create convincing digital copies of people. Distinguishing real from fake online is getting harder. That core idea, it resonates.
And the third thing?
AI as a decision maker. We're not ruled by machines, but AI is making critical decisions in fields like cybersecurity, healthcare, spotting threats faster than humans, helping diagnose diseases, optimizing logistics. It's becoming an intelligent co-pilot in many areas.
They really saw the potential for AI's rapid growth and its integration to critical systems. But where did the movie's vision kind of overshoot the mark? Where has reality thankfully been different?
Right. The crucial differences, thankfully, three main things. First, dependence on humans. The movie's AI is totally autonomous. Our AI today still heavily relies on human input. It needs huge data sets we provide, constant human oversight, fine-tuning, training. Even ChatGPT needs engineers. They don't learn entirely on their own yet.
That's a big difference.
Huge. Second, AI is not conscious. The agents, the architect, they seem sentient. They have motives. Real AI today, it isn't conscious. It processes data, finds patterns, generates responses based on algorithms. It can simulate intelligence brilliantly, but it doesn't feel or think or have subjective experiences like we do.
Okay, that's reassuring.
Very. And third, AI's potential for good. The Matrix paints AI almost entirely as this dark, oppressive force, but in reality, AI is proving to be an invaluable tool for progress. It helps fight cyber threats, makes systems more efficient, develops medicine, personalizes education. It has enormous potential for good, not just for enslavement.
So, summing that up,
Yeah.
the Wachowskis were definitely ahead of their time predicting AI's rapid evolution and extensive capabilities, but thankfully the whole sentient autonomous takeover part seems hugely exaggerated.
For now, yes, a relief. It's more of a powerful what if, a cautionary tale, than a blueprint.
It's indeed a thought experiment. Okay, let's zoom out one last time, back to Baudrillard's really radical idea, that the real Matrix isn't a computer program you can just unplug. It's something deeper. This pervasive semiotic code governing our lives.
Right.
In the movie, Neo smashes the code, there's a system failure, a chance maybe to get back to the real. But for us, Baudrillard would say, there's no system failure to return us to the real because this matrix is woven into everything already.
That's the really terrifying part of his vision, especially in the consumer society. The code governing our lives, he says, isn't virtual, it's semiotic and actual. It's the silent language of signs, images, brands, media narratives that shapes our experience before we even have it.
How does that work?
He talks about the pacification of everyday life through communicational and consumer society, where every act and thought is preceded by its own semiotic model. Our whole world becomes this produced, semiotically hyper-realized, mapped-out, programmed experience. Think about algorithms feeding you content, ads shaping desires.
It creates our reality for us.
In a way, yes. This matrix, Baudrillard argues, is more penetrating, complete, and attractive than any yet realized on our cinema screens. Our lives are constantly mediated, overexposed, hyper-realized. We almost aspire for our lives to look like the simulation, like a perfect movie or Instagram feed. This matrix, he says, truly has us, because it's not external, it's inside our heads.
Wow. That's a lot. And it connects to the film's own leanings, this quasi-spiritual transhumanist synergy it seems to aim for, right? Even love between Neo and Trinity becomes an energy source for the machines. It's all about transcending the physical through something.
Yeah, there's definitely a transhumanist vibe. Transhumanism basically believes in enhancing humanity through technology, often with this idea of a mind-body split, favoring the mind as the real self.
Which sounds a lot like Silicon Valley dreams. Uploading consciousness, Digital immortality.
Exactly. It resonates with that big tech new American dream, and The Matrix kind of uses Buddhist ideas about mindfulness, but channels them into this transhumanist goal: mastering the mind frees you from the material.
But what's the critique of that?
Well, a more critical post-humanist view would say that focusing only on the mind decouples identity and autonomy from any embodiment or material reality. It risks ignoring very real embodied struggles, like, historically, the Black struggle for recognition as embodied human subjects, not just objects or data. Posthumanism also blurs human-machine lines, but emphasizes that we are always embodied and embedded beings. Our identities are tied to our bodies and environments. It offers a more grounded way to analyze control, rather than seeking escape from the body.
So even if the Matrix leans transhumanist, it still touches on this idea of a control society, doesn't it? Like the philosopher Deleuze talked about, people sliced into data.
Yes, Deleuze's idea of ultra-rapid forms of free-floating control that turn individuals into individuals' fragmented data points in databases, that feels incredibly current.
Our lives as data in banks.
Exactly, and it fits our universe of constant distraction, which Resurrection satirized with face Zuckersuck. This leads to Slavoj Zizek's idea of the third pill.
Not red or blue, but
Not an escape to pure reality, but a pill that lets you see the reality in illusion itself, to see the cracks, the inconsistencies, the void which makes reality incomplete, to understand how the system works from within.
which connects back to Marx's idea of us being conscious linkages in a machine.
Right, and maybe connects to the argument that big tech's thingification of experience, turning our lives, interactions, identities into coded digital data, is kind of generalizing what was historically done to marginalized groups, treating people as animate things, objects, data points, a sobering thought about how control systems can dehumanize.
So ultimately, that red pill choice, it's not a one-time thing, is it? The Matrix suggests it's this ongoing process of questioning. The ending with Rage Against the Machines, Wake Up, it leaves you thinking there's always more to question, right?
Absolutely. It taps into that flickering recognition that social reality as it appears is not satisfactory, that nagging feeling again.
That splinter.
Yeah. And that might be the deepest message from thinkers like Adorno and Baudrillard that the film channels. The choice isn't some simple good versus evil, red versus blue, Manichaean thing.
Manichaean meaning?
Like black and white, absolute good versus absolute evil. No nuance. Instead, Baudrillard might say there's an infinitude of red pills, an endless number of perspectives, critiques, truths, and there's no way of telling which one is the right pill, or indeed if there even is a right pill.
So understanding the system doesn't automatically free you from it.
That's the tough part for critical theory. Understanding commodity fetishism, how capitalism works, does not neutralize the relentless march of capitalism. We can take a red pill, become aware, but as Baudrillard implies, if the system is everywhere, woven into reality itself, there is no one to unplug us. The search for truth isn't about finding a final answer, but about continuous questioning, constantly probing the real we live in. No easy outs.
Wow. What an incredible deep dive that was. We've gone from The Matrix's groundbreaking film tech and its unique blend of influences
Bullet time to Baudrillard.
to its deep philosophical roots in Descartes, Plato, Baudrillard himself. Explored its sharp social critique via Marx, Adorno, Weber. Looked at its complicated life in pop culture and how resurrections try to respond. Evaluated its surprisingly sharp and sometimes off-base AI predictions. And ended up grappling with the very nature of our own control society, freedom, and reality.
Quite the journey down the rabbit hole.
Indeed. So you've journeyed through the desert of the real, navigated hyperreality, and explored the steel-hard casing of society. And as you go about your day, ask yourself, have you ever truly eaten tasty wheat?